Good morning. I want to thank Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning. I want to thank Jeanette Wilson, of course, for her leadership as well, and Rabbi Reeves for his compelling remarks about the Jewish faith tradition and its connection to our own experiences in slavery. As a history teacher, it's very important that we remember and acknowledge the challenges that our country has faced, particularly around the treatment of African Americans. And it's fitting that in 2019, 400 years after the first Africans were brought to this country in bondage in 1619, that we are focusing on the Emancipation Proclamation. 244 years in slavery. 244 years. I always reminded my students that we were slaves in this country longer than we have been free people. 244 years as slaves. And as we look at the end of slavery, which of course formally ended with the 13th Amendment to the Constitution in 1865, we also should look at the markers, the milestones along that path to emancipation. And one of the most important, of course, is this document, the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation of 1863. I think it's important to understand that Abraham Lincoln was lobbied, was pushed, was enticed, was encouraged to do this by the abolitionists who worked very hard for generations to end slavery in this country and who provided the moral force that enabled Abraham Lincoln to come to this conclusion. There were two things that brought him there. One, the moral force of the abolitionists, and the other, the needs of the war. It's true, as you heard earlier, that the Union needed additional soldiers, and one of the ways to provide them was to end slavery and allow African men to fight in the Civil War, which they did with distinction and honor. So I'm very grateful to Operation PUSH for focusing on the Emancipation Proclamation. And it is a historic document, which, as I said, is one of the milestones on the road to emancipation of African Americans in this country. Surely, emancipation did not result in full freedom. The law and what's happening in reality are also not sometimes the same thing. And there was a long period of Jim Crow and segregation and third-class citizenship that followed emancipation. But the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery, the 14th Amendment, which gave us birthright citizenship, the 15th Amendment, which gave black men the right to vote, were all important milestones on our road to freedom. And we're very grateful. We're very grateful to Operation PUSH today for its willingness to call out this important document as we look at the history of people of African descent in this country. And I appreciate this event, and I hope that it continues to be supported in the years to come, because I think it's critical that we acknowledge and celebrate those events in our past which brought us to this present day. Thank you very much.
So we learn and we share together. We learn and we share together. This morning I did the CNN, and the first thing that the host did, being generous, was to say that on January 1st, some African Americans observed this occasion. There was not the appreciation that this day freed white people too. The Emancipation Proclamation was not for blacks only. If we had lost the Union, whites of the North would have been enslaved as well. I want Myra, who was running for mayor, a brilliant young sister. She is a PhD in law, says she got a PhD in law degree at the same time. So this sister, a PhD and a law degree at the same time. That's rare as hen's teeth. But beyond that, her father's a preacher of the gospel, and she's running a commitment to public service. I want you, Myra, to come and talk about it for a minute before the Emancipation Proclamation means you. Give up a big hand, Myra.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Reverend Jackson for the invitation to speak to all of you. I again want to thank Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson and Betty, who always takes care of me and makes sure that I'm well-informed and comfortable in this space. I want to also thank Pastor Edie, fellow Westsider, from where I reside on that side of town. It's wonderful to see you here. And to all of you who have joined us on this occasion, Emancipation 2019. 400 years after the first Africans hit these shores. And what does that mean? There's an African proverb that everyone well knows, I believe, that says you do not know where you are going if you don't know your past. Today is about remembering our past. It's about honoring our past. But also it's about saying that there is a link from that past to what happens in our future. 244 years of slavery. As Reverend Jackson said earlier, some of us can only go back 1 or 2 generations in remembering our grandparents. 244 years in a system that was never designed for us to be integrated into this society. It's important to note that although progress has been made, there is a unique justice claim that the descendants of enslaved Africans have to this country that has still not been met. That the issues that we see, whether we look at issues with the criminal justice system and the mass incarceration, or we look at the loss of black wealth after the housing crisis, or we look at what is happening in education and the access to quality education, in spite of the declaration of our independence in the 1800s, that unique justice claim has not been fulfilled. It is why equity is so important. It is why we focus on changing the institutions that perpetuate the same notion of slavery. It is why we have to have a critical lens when we look at mass incarceration and the 13th Amendment and recognize that although on the books slavery was illegal, but in the Constitution, by another way, it's still very much legal. We have to have a critical eye, because until that unique justice claim of the descendants of enslaved Africans is fulfilled, this country will not be able to fulfill its promise. And it's important that we speak about that unapologetically. Emancipation to me means liberation. Those enslaved Africans understood very well that the system that enslaved them could not stand, that it required them consistently to resist those very systems, that they knew that unless they consistently resisted those systems, that the system of slavery would continue in perpetuity. What does that mean for us? In this first day of 2019, it means that we have to be concerned about our liberation. It means that we must be willing to critique and reject systems that continue to keep us in a state where 3/5 is not just theoretical, it's a reality. It means that we have to reject systems of government and individuals that perpetuate those systems that would seek to keep us enslaved, whether physically or mentally. It means that we look to new leadership with the ideas and the fight to release us from those shackles, because our liberation and our future depends on it. And we know we can do it because we know our past. That is the message on this day for me, and I hope it's what you will consider as we celebrate Emancipation Day. Thank you.
your hands together. As we seek to go counterculture, say today, we seek to go counterculture, to learn something new. For example, we're taught that the Statue of Liberty, Amara, is the welcome emblem for the Europeans coming from Europe. We welcome them. That's really not true. The abolitionists were marching around Europe to end slavery. As we marched around the world to end apartheid in South Africa, they were fighting to end slavery. They were marching against institutions that accepted cotton from America in Britain and in France. And when the war ended and the Union was spared and the deal with Britain and France did not go through and blacks were freed, they gave America a gift called the Statue of Liberty. You go to the same river in France, so you'll see smaller statue of the Statue of Liberty. So the Statue of Liberty is a gift to America from French freedom fighters. Talk to me, French freedom fighters for ending slavery and saving the Union. The same is true with Thanksgiving days. Say Thanksgiving, as I asked you to. Thanksgiving is not about turkeys and cranberry. There's always some festival for the harvesting season. When Lincoln came out of Gettysburg, we had won the war. He wanted to thank God in some way. And so Lincoln, on that day, made Thanksgiving a national holiday by executive order. He couldn't have gotten to the Congress. There had always been some event in the fall of the year. So Thanksgiving is a monument, a thanks to God, Lincoln, for ending the war and setting the captives free. Now, before I go any further, this week we talked a lot with Reverend Al Sharpton, who is on the air now. Al will be doing his show today from around the nation on what emancipation means around the nation. So Al Sharpton is now a grandfather. Al is now Uncle Gramps. A big hand for Reverend Al Sharpton. Let's talk to me, Al.
Okay, my man, right on.